NFL football fans. It's that time again, time for another edition of NFL Football Talk. This is an Inside Sports production. I'm your host, Charles E. Smith Jr. Hope everyone had a very Merry Christmas as we head toward the new year, and we'll see what 2016 brings. But in the NFL, we're all the way up to Week 17, which means the playoffs are going to be here before we even know it. So let's go ahead and break it down. We still got a couple of playoff spots still to be decided here. So let me break everything down for you. You know I don't do that alone. I got to enlist only the best to help me out with this. So let me introduce to you everybody. You may follow him on Twitter at Chris L Sports, and if not, you should be, because he has some really fantastic nuggets of wisdom from somewhere in an undisclosed location in Southern California. The fantastic football mind of none other than Chris Lardieri. Chris, what's happening out there, man?
Charles, as always, thank you for the fantastic introduction. Hope you enjoyed your Christmas, and still sitting here Monday night trying to make heads or tails of that Bengals-Broncos games and the plethora of updates on Sunday in the NFL.
Yeah, you know, and that, by the way, congratulations all you Broncos fans. Your team is in. And I think this was the first time, and we talked about the bad officiating, but I think this is the first time, and we saw this in the overtime when McCarron had actually clearly fumbled the ball. That's empty hand coming forward. Ball should have gone to Denver. Game over. Instead, the officials, they don't do what they're supposed to do. And this is the first time I have truly seen the football gods step in and decide the game for them, as A.J. McCarron doesn't cleanly handle the snap on the very next play, and then Denver recovers that fumble, which is one the officials can't screw up.
Yeah, absolutely. Although, even if the game had continued, I highly doubt A.J. McCarron would have led the Bengals to a touchdown, not with the way he was playing in the second half. But you're absolutely right. That's the quickest football karma I've ever seen exacted in a game.
Yeah, so... And, you know, Denver going down 14-0, then coming back, so that's great. And then, you know, the way that the playoffs have gone now, and the Sunday upsets, though, the Patriots lose to the New York Jets. Then we had Seattle losing to St. Louis. The Steelers, though, losing to Baltimore. And that was a game the Steelers really needed, because now they're really shaky with the playoff picture. But the Steelers losing to Baltimore, I think, had to be the most stunning. Even more so than Arizona putting that 38-8 beatdown on Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, definitely. Especially when you consider the man who either doesn't have an alarm clock or just can't wake up, period. Ryan Mallett, just signed by the Ravens, leads his team to victory in a game that was flexed out of Sunday night, turned into the shocker of the weekend. So, yeah, not a lot of people happy in Pittsburgh, and the proverbial vultures are already circling around Mike Tomlin. I mean, you can blame them all you want, but Roethlisberger didn't have the greatest game, and the Steelers didn't make the stops when they needed to on really a bunch of second and third stringers on the Ravens offense. Yeah, that's true. And so now the Steelers are in the position where they need to win. They need to beat Cleveland this weekend and hope that the Buffalo Bills can upset the Jets for them in order for them to get in. Otherwise, the Jets control their own destiny. The Jets, by virtue of beating the Patriots in overtime, they can now beat the Bills next week, and they're in the playoffs. Who would have thought? This time last year we were talking about Rex Ryan being run out of town and the mess of the GM that was John Itzik. To Woody Johnson's credit, he cleaned house, brought in Todd Bowles and Mike McCagnon, and they're on the cusp of making the playoffs, turned it around in 1 year. You know, even if they don't get in, I'm sure they'll be disappointed, but 10-6 season, really, it's quite an accomplishment.
Yeah, that's true. And then, by the way, with Denver's win tonight, that officially actually eliminates the Indianapolis Colts from the playoff picture. When you talk about a team that's in just turmoil, disarray, an absolute mess, that's the Indianapolis Colts. And going into this weekend, now, Matt Hasselbeck, their 40-year-old quarterback, was injured. Charlie Whitehurst hurt himself in the game yesterday as well. So they had Stephen Morris, I think, who was going to start, or Andrew Luck. But then I'd heard they were trying to sign another quarterback. So it was really a mess. And you got to wonder what's going to happen with that once proud franchise once the season is over, which for them is going to be basically it's right now.
Yeah, Chuck Pagano's all but a goner, and I know you can't pin it all on him. I mean, Luck's injury was just catastrophic, but even when he was playing, the team was clearly underachieving, and there's already been tension going into the season. He didn't get an extension, so I'll put good money on saying next Monday morning, early afternoon, Chuck Pagano will not be the Colts head coach.
Yeah, I would think so. And then, we talk about those division games, and division games are always the toughest because those teams know each other so well. And this past weekend, we look at two of the upsets. The Atlanta Falcons beating the Carolina Panthers, and then you have the St. Louis Rams beating the Seahawks in Seattle. And you look at the Rams, though, that's really a conundrum. Against the Seahawks and the Cardinals, they have a record of 3-1, but against the rest of the league, their record is 4-7 this year. Can you make any sense of that?
I cannot, but apparently it's good for Jeff Fisher's job security because he's apparently going to be back next year. Guess the Rams just like playing up or down to the level of their opponent. I really can't figure out, but it is impressive considering Case Keenum has been quarterbacking him here down the stretch. Imagine if the Rams just had a decent quarterback, never mind a star.
Right.
They might actually be dangerous.
If they had a Brad Johnson, they would be in business. So now, would you think there's any concern in Carolina? Last week, they blew the 28-point lead to the Giants and wound up winning that game in the last moments, and now they lose to the Atlanta Falcons this week. So do you think, are they looking a little bit fragile, or no need to get near the panic button?
I don't think you should. I think, if anything, that probably alleviates a lot of stress losing this game. And, I mentioned a few weeks ago I thought they'd drop one. Looking at the schedule, I figured it'd either be the Giants or the Falcons, who played them both. One was a win, one was a close win. And then the Saints, who really
right.
have no defense. They're just an offensive team, gave them a scare. So there have been kinks in the armor. I think the key is that they really miss Jonathan Stewart. And when you
right.
can't get the running game going for the Panthers, it exposes what we thought were their holes going into the season, and that they really don't have much of a wide receiving core. You take away the running game, you take away Greg Olsen, and Cam Newton's out of options. And we saw that, especially with the Falcons' pass rush. So they're kind of in a must-win situation in the sense that if they lose and the Cardinals win, they lose the home field throughout the NFC playoffs. But at the same time, I think it's got to be letting some air out of that balloon. If they do, they'll probably have to do some scoreboard watching. But at the same time, Ron Rivera's probably got a little more latitude to rest some guys or take the foot off the gas.
Right. Well, don't they play Tampa Bay this weekend? So
They do.
Yeah. If they lose that game, I would say go ahead and not hit the panic button, but, just keep your hand kind of near it. Okay.
Yeah, especially with the way Jameis Winston's played the last couple weeks.
Yeah, he's really had kind of a rough up and down year. Well, him and Marcus Mariota both, the two highly touted top draft pick quarterbacks there, rough seasons. I'd say Winston had a little bit better of a season, but then again, Winston does have a better team than Mariota when you look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, definitely. Mariota's on just probably one of the, if not the worst team in the league, with little or no help on the offensive line and not a heck of a lot of weapons. So, at least, like you said, I mean, they've got a running back in Doug Martin who's contending for the rushing title right off the bat, and two quality receivers. So, and I think it's more upside there, too, heading into next year in Tampa as well.
Yep. Absolutely. So let's go ahead and, we do the picks of the week every week. We see how we do on these games. So coming down, it's time for me to give my concession speech because Mr. Lardieri has an insurmountable lead so far on the season. Now, we pick 5 games every week. So far on the season, I am 41-39. Mr. Lardieri is 48-32. So no way I can make that up in 1 week. So, Chris, you won the regular season title, but as you stated last week, it's not about that. It's about winning those playoff games that really matters.
Absolutely. We don't want to be like Andy Dalton, winning games and then come January folding like a cheap set of cards. But regardless, thank you. You're a gracious opponent. I believe this is, I don't know I know I've won the last 2 years. I can't remember if it's been 3, but apparently I'm good at picking regular season football at a .600 winning percentage. And if I didn't have enough common sense, I'd go to Vegas because you hit 55 to 60%, you can make a nice living. But I know better than that. This league's way too wacky to prognosticate. And even last week, you and I thought we'd at least have a good week and go 4-1, and we ended up 3-2. Part of that's thanks to Bill Belichick kicking in overtime, but I won't belabor that point.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get into the games of this week. We talked about the New Orleans Saints and New Orleans division rival, New Orleans in Atlanta to play the Atlanta Falcons, who were in a free fall. They wound up beating Carolina. We'll see if that pumped them up a little bit. Drew Brees threw for 400 yards last week, 412 to be exact, and Julio Jones needs 17 catches to break the regular season record for catches in a season, I think, which is held by Marvin Harrison. So probably be an aerial show. How do you see this one? New Orleans in Atlanta, Drew Brees on one side, Matty Ice on the other, and there's going to be footballs flying all over the field. What do you think?
I think it's going to be fun to watch, and you've got two teams and two quarterbacks who've kind of woken up here in the past few weeks. And what you want is, as a team, when you're not going to the playoffs, you can either play spoiler or you can set the tone for next season by getting a little bit of a winning streak. And I think the Falcons have done that here. I'm going with the Falcons. I think it will be your typical Saints-Falcons game where Breeze and Ryan will shine because there's not a heck of a lot of defense, but I think the Falcons have a little more than the Saints, and I also think just the way they've been playing, and under rookie head coach Dan Quinn, they've kind of turned things around, and there's always rumblings that Thomas Dimitroff, the GM, might be on the hot seat, so there's a lot to play for here. I'll go with the Falcons. I know we're very skeptical of Matty Ice, but at the end of the day, I just don't trust that Saints defense. And props to Drew Brees, whether he stays in New Orleans or not. The guy's a gamer, playing with the plantar fasciitis like Peyton Manning has. Although I don't think Drew's ordering any HGH by FedEx, but you got to give it to him and Sean Payton too. Who knows? Might be his last game as the Saints coach.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So I'm gonna, I got to go with New Orleans though. I think that when it comes to slinging the ball around the field, I think Drew Brees can just do it a little bit better, and I think he wants to kind of go out on top. Should be a great game. And would you agree that were one in Vegas, they should go ahead and play the over?
I think that's a fair assessment. Now, that said, watch one of the two quarterbacks either get hurt or start throwing interceptions left and right, and kind of have this thing go up in smoke. But you know what? We've done this a couple times this year, and you've hit the nail on the head twice with the over, so why not go for 3?
Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we're going to split on that one. I'm going with New Orleans. This game, New York Jets, who need that game to get into the playoffs, unless Pittsburgh lays an egg against Cleveland. But New York Jets in Buffalo. Buffalo can play the role of spoiler, much like Baltimore may have done to Pittsburgh last week. Teams love to do that when they're out of the playoffs. That's really the only thing that Rex Ryan has left to do, is to try to spoil the Jets' season. Now, last week, running back LaShawn McCoy, but Mike Gillislee run for 93 yards on 9 carries. Discovered a running back last week there in Buffalo. I'm going to go ahead and say the Jets. The Jets, they've got to play for. They're playing well. No reason why that's going to end. So I'm going to Jets in this game. What do you think?
I agree with you. I should have picked the Jets last week, going with more of history and emotion, and I didn't. But I really like the way that Brandon Marshall's played this year. He's had an unbelievable season. And Ryan Fitzpatrick, resurrected from backup quarterback hell, really coming along and playing exceptionally well in Shane Gailey's offense. And, lots made, Rex is going to get revenge on his old team and this and that. But just looking purely objectively at this Bills defense, there's some rumblings that they're not happy with the scheme that Rex has. And on top of that, you look at the offense. It's a team that put up 16 points against the Dallas Cowboys. Not really a defensive juggernaut. I really don't think they're going to put up that many against this Jets front seven and Revis Island on one corner. So I'm going to go with the Jets. Unfortunately, I think they win it and knock your Steelers out of the playoffs.
Yeah, I think so. That's just the way it goes. And you know what? The Steelers, my number 2 team, as everybody knows. But you know what? You lose to Baltimore, who's on their quarterback number 4 or whatever it is, and in a game that you needed to win. hey, that's just karma right there. They could have won that game and then kept themselves in it. But, yeah, I think the Jets, they win and they're in. And Jets, Jets. Let's do it.
All right, I won't be doing that, Chair, but I'm with you.
Okay, and then another division game, San Diego at Denver. This could have been a big game had Denver lost to Cincinnati tonight, but they did not. So San Diego with really nothing to play for, and, in Denver to kind of just wrap things up a little bit. How do you see this one? Do you think any chance that Rivers goes there and puts on a show? They win that game in Denver. And then San Diego, with all the turmoil, also with what they did to Eric Weddle. In case some of you don't know, the last game they played in San Diego, Weddle wound up not going into the locker room at halftime. He stayed out, watched his daughter perform. The club, they fined him $10,000 for that. Now they have put him on IR, and so he's pretty much, his career is done with San Diego. So they've got that going when he started there. So what do you think in this one?
Yeah, I think the Broncos, whether they, looking at it now, I haven't checked the numbers to see where they can fare in terms of getting a bye or locking up the overall number one seed in the AFC. But regardless, they win this game. I think they keep their foot on the gas. And the Chargers, watching that Thursday night debacle in Oakland, Rivers really has no weapons. The offense looks lackluster. The defense has been in shambles all season.
Yeah.
I think the final nail in the coffin will be the way this organization treated Eric Weddle. Spent his whole career with the Chargers, has really given himself to this organization. The pictures of him laying on the field at Qualcomm long after the game was over, at the logo. I mean, just classless. But then again, an organization that's just bashing their fan base and their city and all but have one foot out the door for LA. It shouldn't surprise you, but I really think that there's not going to be much fight left, and the Chargers and the Broncos win this game.
Yep, I think so also. So I'm going with Denver. We'll both agree on that one. Really no further analysis needed, whether it's Brock Osweiler starting at quarterback or Peyton Manning. I'm going to take the Broncos to win that game. And then let's get into one of the more interesting games here. Seattle Seahawks at 9-6. They are in Arizona. Arizona on the 9-game win streak, which is matched only by the Kansas City Chiefs at this point. There you go, big division game. Seattle Seahawks in Arizona. Arizona coming off of that really stomping of the Green Bay Packers, while the Seahawks lost to the Rams. So I'm going to go ahead and I got to go with the Arizona Cardinals on this. Really, I think they're the more complete team. In fact, I think they're the most complete team in the NFC and maybe in the entire NFL at this point. So strong on both sides of the ball. The run game is strong. Palmer's playing well. The receivers are good. The defense is strong. I think they're going to win this game for their home fans. So I'm going Cardinals here.
I'm going to agree with you, especially if the overall number one seed in the NFC is still at play. They're really going to want to whoop the Seahawks, and Seattle really just did not put up a good effort against that Rams front. I don't see them doing against an equally tough Cardinals D. Carson Palmer, I've been beating the drum for a comeback player of the year. This guy keeps it up and has another great game. I think you've got to put him in the MVP talk. I mean, everyone loves Cam, but quietly, Carson Palmer clearly is, because look at the way that the team just completely fell from grace last year when he tore up his knee. I mean, that team needs him. He's a winner, and he's playing great down there. So going with the Cardinals, I think the Seahawks will stumble into the playoffs.
Yep, I like the Cardinals as well. So we agree on that one, and Seahawks are going in, but we'll see. Probably going to be a wild card, so I don't know how much they truly have to play for here. But, this sets up this next game, which is going to be the Sunday night game. The Minnesota Vikings in Green Bay to play the Packers. Now, the division title is on the line. The winner of this wins the NFC North. That's just it. So, the thing is, you win the NFC North, you host a playoff game. Otherwise, you're a wild card and go on the road. Now, the other games will have been decided at this point, so you have a situation here where you could win the game and play at home, but probably have to play the Seahawks, or if you lose the game, you go to the road, but you'd have to play the Washington Redskins. Mr. Lardieri, before we pick, what do you think about that whole scenario there? Do you think that might cause some conflicted feelings on how you want to play that game?
Normally, I think there could be a gray area and a moral dilemma for a coach, but the Vikings and Packers, having my wife's family up in the Minneapolis area, those two teams hate each other. Those two teams' fan bases hate each other. And at the end of the day, I think I'd rather have a home playoff game than go on the road. And I don't know why. I did this earlier this year. I know the Vikings beat up on the hapless Giants last night, so I don't take too much from that. But I do like the way Peterson's running. He's got the rushing title in his sights. Bridgewater's making the plays, managing the game well still, and that defense is ever impressive. And having watched the beatdown the Cardinals put on Aaron Rodgers, I mean, not only does he not have any weapons, he doesn't have anyone blocking for him, too. So you can complain about the interceptions, the turnovers, whatever, but the guy's just running for his life at times, and I don't like the way the Packers are playing. I'm going to go for the upset and pick the Vikings on the road at Lambeau.
Yeah, I think so. And the cold weather is not going to affect the Vikings because it is bitterly cold in Minnesota as well, as everyone knows, and they do play outdoors at the same stadium as the Golden Gophers. So, yeah, I'm going with Minnesota too, and that's the same thing as with the Cardinals, picking the Cardinals over the Seahawks. I think Minnesota has the more complete team at this moment, and looking at all things being equal, and again, love Aaron Rodgers, but just too much to overcome. Strong defense for the Vikings, and then balanced attack, the passing game and the running game. So I'm going to go with the Vikings here. The only X factor is the experience thing. Does Bridgewater kind of panic when he gets into the big moments of the game? This is huge. Winning the NFC North, that's going to be huge. So that may factor in, but other than that, yeah, I got the Vikings all the way here.
All right. I don't know whether to be worried or optimistic by us sharing the same opinion.
Okay, so everybody, let's go ahead and recap. New Orleans at Atlanta. I'm going for New Orleans, while Mr. Lardieri picks the Atlanta Falcons. We both agree we got the Jets over Buffalo. We both take Denver to win at home over San Diego. We're both taking the Cardinals to win at home over the Seattle Seahawks. And then we both expect the Minnesota Vikings to go on the road and beat the Green Bay Packers. So that's about it. And I know everyone's ready to party for New Year's, like you know I am here. So, Mr. Lardieri, before we check out, do you have any nuggets of wisdom for us?
Sure. My final thought of the year, I will leave you with this. The NFL is a league of trends, and watching these games on Sunday and seeing what Brandon Weeden did, jettisoned by the Cowboys and essentially leading the Texans to the playoffs. Will the new trend in 2016 be, A, have a good backup quarterback, or B, develop one? Because let's face it, that all but killed the Cowboys season. It pretty much killed the Colts season, although they were spiraling out of control. And look at the Cincinnati Bengals. If Andy Dalton's still playing, I'd venture to say they'd be the number one seed in the AFC. So the Broncos got away with it. Brock Osweiler's really played well, and teams are going to look at that and say, wow, you don't need the greatest backup. You need a guy who understands the offense and is serviceable. And in the salary cap era where your number one guy's eating up a lot of cap room, you may need to draft the young guy and bring him along, but you can't ignore it anymore. And kind of hand in hand with that, you've got to start giving your backup some reps in practice and prepare for the worst case scenario week to week.
Yep. Absolutely. Got to be prepared. So, hey, everybody, remember you can follow me on Twitter at The Inside Sports. Follow Mr. Lardieri on Twitter at Chris L. Sports. So, for Mr. Lardieri, I am Charles E. Smith Jr. Remember, everybody, have a happy, safe, and sane New Year. We will see everybody in 2016 with our first show of the season, which will be for Wild Card Weekend. Thank you for watching NFL Football Talk, which is an Inside Sports production.